So here we are in Skill Review 2.1. So this is let's take a look at it. I'm gonna make it first of all. First things first, make it a little bit bigger. See what the heck we're talking about here. I'm just using my zoom button to make things bigger. Maybe one more. Here we go. And I'll do my save as. Just give it put my initials on the beginning, so I still have my original version in case something goes wrong. And here we are inside this sheet. So let's take a look at what's going on here. This is there's a vitamin and supplement plan. We just want to look at the sort of the costs, just sort of a summary of these vitamins and supplements that each patient might be making. So let's say you work in a doctor's office and you got a bunch of patients, and you have your patients who need vitamins and supplements, and you want to give them a little like handy sheet that shows them what's going on, what their costs are, and so on. So that's what this sheet is meant to be. When it's finished, it will look more or less like this. Here we go. And again, this one isn't designed for, wasn't printed out in a neat way, but I probably would turn this thing landscape and print it on one sheet. But you can see it gives a little sort of analysis, and we'll talk about those things. We may get to that today, but we'll put this information in. So it's just a way of summarizing the information here. This chapter, much of this chapter, is about formatting. Excel is great for doing calculations and getting information, but often you have to then take that information and do something with it, either use it for yourself or give it to someone else. And obviously, the better job you do at making things well formatted, well organized, the easier it will be for you or whoever else has to use it to understand. So formatting is important. It's not just about getting some numbers in there. It's about organizing your sheet and doing some things to help us understand the numbers a little bit better. So let's go do those things. Let's at least get started on doing those things. So we have done the first couple of steps here. We have opened our file. We put our initials on it. We did not need to enable editing. Let's do this first thing where we deal with the title. So we're going to deal with the title, A1, titles in A1 and 2. So let's do that. So here we go. So A1 is this title recommendations, and A2 is this sort of second subtitle, vitamins and supplements. So we want this title, let's look at the finished version for a minute. We want this title to be all the way across the top of our page. So we're going to merge those cells together. We haven't done that yet. So I'm going to select A1, and then I'm going to shift click on H1 to select cells A1 through H1. And now I'm going to merge those cells together. Hang on one second here. I'm going to merge those cells together. And in one step, I'm going to merge the cells together and center the text in those cells. So I got a button for that. Thank you, button. So again, I selected the cells, A1 through H1. There's the merge and center button. It's a split button, but in this case, I only need the first half of it, the left half of it. Merge and center, and that will merge and center those cells. So now, technically, there is no B1 or C1 or D1 or E1, F1, G1 or H1. The next cell I can get to I1, but if I click on H1, it actually selects this one big cell. So we have turned this A1 through H1 into one big supercell that is A1 through H1. And we did that so we can take this title and center it and put it over our whole page. That's a very, very common thing to do in Excel, is to take some titles and merge and center. And since H is our last column, we are centering it across there. We're going to do the exact same thing again, except for row 2. So I'm going to click on A2, shift click on H2 to select those cells. And I'm going to click my same button, my merge and center button, and that merges and centers the second. So we've got this title and this second heading, this subtitle. So now, that's good, but now that's a little bit, it's a little bland. Let's see if we can't jazz that title up a little bit, maybe make it bigger, do something to make it look a little bit more like a title, not just sort of a random cell. So I'm going to click on this A1, which is technically the merging of A1 through H1, and I'm going to give this thing a style. So here in your home tab in your styles group, we've got this styles gallery. And let me zoom in on that. And in the styles gallery, there's the more button. Almost all, in fact, all the galleries in Office have a more button, unless you can see the whole gallery. And more button will give us the more choice. So I'm going to click on this more button. And here is a style for the cell. That is the title style. By the way, this is a live preview, so if you want to see what various styles look like, you can go and mouse over them and change the styles. I want to use this title cell style, so I'm going to click on title, and you'll see that'll make the cell. It looks like it made it a dark blue instead of a black, and it's bigger. Its fonts, it's a little bit bigger and a different font size. So Century Gothic, and I use that title cell style. Let's do the same thing or a similar thing for row 2. So for row 2 in this A2 through H2 merge cell, we're going to use a different style. We're going to use the accent 5 style for this one. So again, put my mouse over it. So you see it's going to make kind of a band across the way. There is, by the way, you can some people use heading 1 as a second style. That's a fine style too, but this accent 5 gives us kind of a multicolored look. So we'll choose accent 5 as our style for row 2. And one advantage to using styles instead of just going up here, so let me do this. I'm going to save what I have right here. I'm going to go back and undo those real quick. Control Z. So another thing you could have done after merge and centering is gone up here and set your style yourself. You could go up here and you could say, I'm going to make this thing be 18 point, and I'm going to give it a color of a blue, and blah, blah, blah. Nothing wrong with that per se, but the advantage of using a style is that now if you change the theme of this workbook, then the colors and fonts and things that are set in your styles will modify accordingly. So we'll get to themes a little bit later, but as you change themes, to the extent that you use these cell styles that are built in, Excel will automatically make those styles modify for you as well. So themes are something you at least occasionally change in Excel, and using the cell styles is better because it helps you accommodate those themes. So I'm going to undo that manual change. I'm going to go back to doing it the way I did before. So I use the title style for this cell, and I use the accent 5 style for the second cell. When I change a theme, this accent color and size and things and font will change along with me because I'm using one of those built-in styles. All right, let me pause for a second real quick for questions on that before we go on. And I'll save that where I'm at again. Alrighty. All right, let's do at least a couple more steps, do a few more things in this, and then we'll call it, and then we'll pick it up again on Monday. Let's see what's next. Jump back to my instructions here. All right, so we made the title style. We did the accent 5 cell style. We're gonna get rid of some extra cells in here, B3 and B4. Talk about how that delete works, and then we will do some alignment of the contents of cells. So again, we haven't changed anything about the formulas in here. We're not actually changing any values. We're just dressing this sheet up and making it look better and make more sense. So formatting is important. It will make things easier to read. So our first problem is we've got really sort of some extra space here. So patient name is Stephanie Hammett. Daily cost is this calculation. Excuse me. And this is, I want to point out that there's a number here, but it's a number that is calculating. It's the cost of all these cells here. So it's a calculation. So obviously, when these values change, the number here in daily cost will change as well. The problem here is that, of course, these values should actually be in column B, not column C. There's just too much space there. So we're going to make it a little bit closer. The way we're going to do that is just delete these cells. So I'll do it the way the book describes it, but I just want to point out what's going on. So I'll select these two cells, and I'll come to the Home tab, and in the Cells group, I'll zoom in and let you see it. There's a delete button. It's a split button, but I'm going to click on the top half of that split button, and it will delete those cells, and it moved those things over. And it's really nice that it did exactly that. And Many times just hitting the delete button will do exactly what you want. It'll shift those cells over in the way that you want. But sometimes it's true that you hit that delete button and you wanted to shift things over, but instead it moves things up. So it could have just as easily shifted the values in this column up. Because when you delete in Excel, how does Excel know? Which way should I go? Should I move things over or should I move things up? And depending on what you're deleting, you might want to do either one. So that's where the split button comes in. So I have these cells selected. I just undid that delete. And now when I come back and look at my split button, zoom on that, I'm going to go to the bottom half and choose delete cells ... And when you see ... it's going to tell you that it's going to give you some more choices. ... in Office always means yes, and what else? So I'll move this over so you can see a little bit better. So I'll click on delete cells ... and that'll pop up this box, which is off my screen here. Here it is. And it says delete, which way do you want to shift the cells? So it's guessing, in this case correctly, that I want to shift the cells left. But if I didn't, then I'll just do it to let you see it. And this obviously isn't what we want. If I chose shift cells up, it actually moved those things up. That's obviously not what I want in this case, so I'm going to undo that. But you can choose which way things move when you delete. When you come here and do delete cells ... and I'll choose shift cells left. And of course, if I want to delete the entire row or column, I've got that choice here. Although that's kind of a longer way to do it. There's other easier ways. So I want shift cells left, so I'll click OK, and it will move those things over, which is what we wanted. And again, that worked just fine by clicking the button and not the arrow. But I wanted us to see what the arrow does because there are times when we need that other functionality. We want to be able to choose in which way things move when we delete. Because when you delete something, the next thing there is going to slide in its place, either shifting left or shifting up. All right, so that's better. That definitely does what we want. And we're also going to make Stephanie Hammett's name align to the right. So I'm going to select B3. Just want to make sure we weren't doing both these. I'm going to select B3, and let's talk about cell alignment. So you may notice, for example, that all the numbers in all these cells are aligned to the right. And you may have also noticed, or not noticed, that all the text in all these cells is aligned to the left. That is the default behavior. In Excel, if you put in text, it aligns to the left. You put in numbers, they align by default to the right. You're not locked into that. Sometimes you want text that's aligned to the right, and sometimes you want numbers that are aligned to the left. You can, of course, control that with the same icon you might have expected, because it's the same icon that you use in Word. So I selected cell B3, and I'm going to now control the formatting. Home tab, alignment group, here is the formatting. And here you are, here is align right. I'm going to click on that button, and it will align that Stephanie Hammett's name to the right. It probably looks a little bit better, so it's kind of lined up more with the number, and it's not over here on the right hand side. Maybe, arguably, you might say it looked okay as it was, but more importantly, we can control the alignment of our text. I'll also mention we're not doing vertical alignment here, but if you had tall cells, you might want to control whether it's bottom align, middle align, or top align. In this case, because these cells are no taller than the text, it doesn't make much difference. Let's just try it. Yeah, you see it just shifts up just slightly. It wouldn't make any difference, but obviously if you had a super tall cell, you'd be shifting to the top of that cell. So we'll keep bottom alignment, which is where it was by default, but we set this text to be right aligned. So that's that. I'm going to save that. And let's see we'll do at least a couple more steps, and then we'll break it off. Let's see where we're at here. All right, yeah, let's do the color formatting, the patient name, and daily cost, and we use the format painter again. And let's see. Yeah, maybe we'll do formatting and borders, and we'll quit there. All right, we'll do a little bit more. See how many brain cells we have left here in our day. So let's format some labels by changing the font color. So I'm gonna go and do that. Let's jump back over here. So we're just controlling them. Let's look at the finished version for just a minute to see if we can understand what we're doing here. So here's the finished version. So we just want to make it bigger. We want to just make the labels, be blue here, and we want these labels to be blue, and then we want that line underneath to be blue as well. So we'll add that border. Again, this is just to make it look better and work better. And I might, if I were looking at this, I might make this NA a line to the right as well, because that looks a little bit awkward, but okay. But there's things we can do to make this look better. Let's go do that. Let's go change our colors of our font. So first thing I'm going to do is format. Let's see what step I'm on here. I'm going to format the labels patient name and daily cost. So A3 and A4. Select those cells. I just use the white cross to select them. They're just two cells next to each other. And I'll go to the Home tab over here in the font group, and I'm going to change it to, I'm going to make them bold. I'm just looking at my instructions here. I'll make them bold, and I'm going to change the font color to Blue Accent 5. So bold, you know, you've seen that one before. The B to make it bold. And font color, you're familiar with that one as well. That's from, same as in Word. Font color button arrow. Remember, the button will choose either the last or the default. In this case, I'm going to go to the button arrow where I can choose what I want. And in this case, I want Blue Accent 5. That's this guy right here. First row, next to last column. So I made that text be a blue, the Blue Accent 5. I think that's the same blue as the cell style up here. So that's that. And now I've formatted those cells to be Blue Accent 5. I also want these cells in row 6 to be Blue Accent 5 as well. So I could, of course, just select them and format them individually, but it's a lot easier to use the Format Painter. So I'm going to use the Format Painter. One word of warning that's not specified here, but I just want to point out, I don't want to use the Format Painter right now because I have two cells selected. And if I try to use the Format Painter and paint across here, it's going to try to format two rows of stuff. It wants to format one cell on top of the other. So I'm going to select either one, doesn't matter which one, either one of those cells. That is the cell whose format I want to copy. So I'm going to select the cell and just reminder, one last reminder, one more reminder, probably not the last one, one more reminder about what the Format Painter does. It copies and pastes formatting. So the way it works is first you select the cell that has the formatting that you want to copy. So in this case, that is cell A3 or A4. It doesn't matter. Either one, they have the same formatting, so either one would be fine. Select A3. Then you turn on the Format Painter. I'm going to click it once to turn it on. And now it is active. The Format Painter button gets darker gray, and I get the green lines around, marching ants around A3, indicating that, yes, I'm about to paint, I'm about to paste, in this case, formatting, and you can see with my white cross, it's got the little paintbrush next to it. I'm going to zoom out so I can see all of this stuff. So I want to do all of this entire row, A6 through H6. So I'm going to click on, actually I'm going to click and drag across A6 through H6. I could also get it by, let's see, let me turn on my Format Painter one more time. See if I can get it the other way. Yeah, no, I wouldn't be able to do that. So I had to click and drag across. I tried to click and shift click, but it wouldn't let me do it that way. So let's undo and do it one more time. So again, select the cell, turn on the Format Painter, and then click and drag across all the cells you want to format like that, all the way across. And now all those cells are blue and bold, same color blue, same amount of bold as those other two cells. So that's handy. And finally, at least finally for today, what we'll do is we'll put in that little bottom border, which looks like this. So we made those things blue, and now let's put in a blue line along the bottom here, again to separate the headings from the actual data inside those cells. Let's do that. So it already happens, it just so happens that I already have those cells selected. If you didn't, obviously you would need to select them. These are the cells that I want to format, and I know, duh, you've got to select the cells before you can format it. Okay, so they're selected, and now I'm going to format them. I'm going to format them by adding a bottom border. And there's other ways you could do it, by the way. You could actually go here. I might do something like add a style here. So if you add one of these styles on it, it doesn't give it the same font color, but it does add that bottom border. But that's not what we're doing. So we're not doing it that way. We're going to add a bottom border in part so we can learn about borders. So have my cell selected here in my Home tab, over here in my, gotta move over a little bit here. Actually, I got it here on my Quick Access toolbar. I love the quick access toolbar. I've got a border button arrow right here. If you don't have it on your quick access toolbar, you can also get it here in the font group. Here it is in the font group. And I'm going to go to the borders button arrow. Again, split button. I want the arrow so I can have more choices. Border button arrow. And I'm going to come all the way down. There's all these sort of built-in borders, ton of built-in borders. That's not enough choices. I want more borders. And that basically says do it manually. So I could put in one of these presets, but none of the presets is exactly what I want. I'm going to come down and choose more borders. And that opens up this Format Cells dialog box with the border tab selected. I got it centered so you can see it hopefully fairly well. So now I'm about to format it again. I'm going to be formatting all the cells that I have selected. So that was A6 through H6. They're all selected. They're all about to get this formatting. So let's go and put a border on here. You may be familiar with this, but just in case you're not, let's go through it real quick. So the first thing we'll do is we'll make the color, choose our color for our border, and we'll choose that same color, that blue accent 5, that same color we had before. We've got the right colors, okay. And we want to put a border along the bottom. So here on the right hand side is this, and by the way, I didn't choose a style. The default style is a solid line, and that's what we want here, sort of a thin solid line. There are other different styles here, but we'll leave that default style. We chose a color, and now we have to choose where this border is going to go. So the border is going to go along the bottom of these cells. You can get that turn that on one of two ways. You can either click here inside this little preview box on the bottom, and you see it puts a line there along the bottom, or you can click on the little button here that turns it on. They both do the same thing. Button toggles it on or off. Clicking on the preview toggles it on or off. Whichever one. I like to click inside the preview, but it doesn't make any difference. They both do the same thing. To toggle that border on, so if you've been toggling like I have, be sure you toggle it on, and then hit OK. And one of the sometimes confusing things is that you probably won't see it while you have those cells selected, but I'm going to click outside here, and now I see there is that blue line underneath that I added as a border. So when this thing prints, and obviously one of the things you might do is print it out, I will see that border. I will not see, by default, I will not see the grid lines, because grid lines, unless you make them print, don't print. But borders do print, so I will have a border at the bottom of each of those individual cells. All right, so I'm going to save it here, and I'm going to put a little mark here on my page. We will end it here. It's a spreadsheet that's going to show a daily vitamin schedule. We take a lot of vitamins, and we just really hear about formatting. 2.1 and 2.2 are mostly about formatting. So we're just trying to make this thing look better and be a little bit more organized. That's our plan. So let's go and see if we can't do that. And so far we, actually let's just show you, look at the sheet and see what we did. So here is where it started. It started out looking like this. So it has some information in here, but it didn't really have, doesn't really look good, not easy to understand, and so on. And so far we've done stuff to make it look like this. So this is up through what we did on Wednesday, through step 10 in the skill review. So we merged and centered the first couple of rows, and we gave them styles. I think this one was a title style, and this one was accent 5. We deleted some cells and moved these other cells over. So Stephanie Hammett was in her, the name was in the proper position. I'll show you what the other one looked like. So it used to look like this, and now, make it a little bigger. And now it's, we moved that over. So that looks better. And we've also colored in, gave these headings a color, and gave them a little underline underneath. And that's where we're at right now. That's our formatting stuff. So let's go on. Let's do a little bit of formatting. I haven't forgotten Mr. Diosdado. I will come to a point where I can answer some questions. What I'll probably do is work through the rest of this sheet and then answer your questions. When it's done. I think it'll be easier to do when we're done. All right, so we've done that formatting, and we're going to pick up on step 11, which is where we left off on 10. So we'll pick up on step 11, which looks like this. So we got to go and move the data that's in row 14 up into the table by cutting them and putting them in there. And then we'll go and apply a style to a cell. Let's go and do those two things. So back to here. So this stuff down here in row 14 actually is another vitamin. It's just not up in with the data. So we need to get this row 14 up here inside the data. And so we're going to do that by cutting and pasting. So I'll select A14 through H14, click and drag, or click and shift click. Probably click and shift click is the easiest in this case. A14 through H14, basically that whole, all the data on that row. And now what I'll do is I will cut that. So if you want to, you can go to the Home tab in the Clipboard group and choose Cut. If you like the shortcut keys, it's Control X right next to C for copy, X for cut. X kind of looks like the shape of scissors maybe, so that's one way to remember X. Control X, and I will cut that. Zoom back out again before I do. I will cut that row. So I do Control X. I get the dotted lines around it, the marching ants around the row that I've cut. You can't really tell whether you've copied or cut at this point because you get the same marching ants, but you'll find out when you paste that this row, this data will go away. So I've cut that, and now I'm going to go and click up on cell A9. So the reason A9 is I want this multivitamin to go immediately above there, to go right above there. So when I paste, and I'm going to paste in just a minute, it's going to paste, it's going to insert right above the row that I'm on. So I'll go here to the insert button arrow here on the Home tab, insert button arrow, zoom in on that, insert button arrow, and I'll choose insert cut cells, and oops, there we go, insert cut cells, and it stuck those cells right up above in the previous row. So let me undo that and redo that real quick. So here's what it looked like before, and then I'll redo with Control Y, and it puts those cells up above. And do note that when I pasted, I did not need to select the whole row. Just needed to select one cell as the upper left corner of the place where I'm going to insert, or I should say I'm going to insert above. So when I chose what was A9, it inserted a new row, 9, and then it shifted this down to A10. And of course what we had here, that's how you know it was a cut. What we had here has now gone away. So we just moved that row up, which is hopefully fairly straightforward. I'll click off there. You can see what it looks like. There's the new version of the row, and don't worry about the fact that this isn't formatted the way we want. We'll get to the formatting of that soon enough. All right, so let me show, one thing I have not done yet is to show the finished version of this. So let me pull up the finished version. Where is that guy? Okay, I'll do it. I may not have it open yet. Let's open it right here. So, I made a printable version. So, yeah, so here's the finished version of it. You may remember last time it was kind of on 2 pages, so I just made it so it printed on 1 page. So here's what it looks like when it's done. So you can see we're on our way, but when we got that multivitamin thing up there. But now we're going to go and do a little bit more formatting with this note. So this note is obviously just a note, just what it says. It's going to be something that's going to remind us some information about the sheet. So we're going to format that so it kind of pops out a little bit. So I will select A13. And remember, this stuff wraps further over because it is wider than the column, right? Wider than column A. And I'll apply a style to A13. So go to the Home tab in the Styles gallery here, and I'll go to the More button arrow, and I'll choose the Note style. That's just, you don't have to use it for a note, but it makes sense for a note. Kind of a yellow, sticky kind of a look. And there it is. So we applied the note style to A13, but of course, or maybe not of course, but it is true that even though it's applied to all of A13, it does not apply to the text that is wrapping outside of A13. So that's not terrible, it just doesn't look great. So there's really sort of 2 solutions to it. One is to wrap the text, and that is the way they do in the book. So we just choose wrap text, and what it will do is it'll make that stuff in A13. It will change the height of column 13 so that everything fits into that cell, everything is visible in that cell with that column width. So it'll make the height of the cell tall enough to fit all the text that's in there. So it wraps the text. And that's not terrible. The only challenge, of course, is if you got a whole lot of text, then you're going to end up having a really super tall cell. Personally, I might do something more like this. I might actually just merge these cells and do it that way. To me, that actually looks a little bit better than the finished version. That's not what we're going to do. But what I did was I merged the cells, and rather than, let me just undo that real quick and do it. So again, I'll do the book's version in a second, but what I want to do instead, what I think looks better personally, is just merge these cells. So hold on, I got the wrong thing. So what I'm going to do is select these cells, and we're used to the merge and center button, but the merge and center button also has an arrow. It's a split button, and the button arrow has some other choices. In this case, merge cells. I don't actually want to center it. I just want to merge those cells together. So I choose merge cells, and now the note is still there, and it's still left justified. Centering wouldn't be terrible. I wanted it left justified, but the cells are all merged. So there's nothing wrong with that way. I actually like that way better, but I'm going to undo it, and I'll do it the way the book suggested, which was, as we did before, to go to cell A13 and just cause that cell to wrap by clicking on the wrap text button, and it makes the cell tall enough. In this case, it happens to be just a little bit taller because it leaves room for a blank line there, but in general, it makes the cell tall enough to fit all the data, and that's fine too. Either way is fine. I like the other version better personally. So that's that. I'll save what I have here. And while I am going on to the next thing, if you have a question about that, now is a good time to ask. Feel free to unmute or chat. Okay, so no questions. So our next bit is to get into conditional formatting. So before we start applying conditional formatting, let's just talk about generally what conditional formatting is. These next three steps are about conditional formatting. So conditional formatting is something as simple as, I'm going to pull up the solution version for a minute. Conditional formatting is simply stated, a way to have Excel change the way cells look based on the contents of the cell. And that's the simplest way to do it. So Excel will look at what's inside the cell, and based on the contents or the values there, will then change the way the cell looks. It might make some things turn different colors. It may put bars. It may do all kinds of things. You can actually control very precisely what it will do. But broadly speaking, conditional formatting says make cells look a certain way based on their values. So why would you want to do that? Well, if you think about it, especially if you've got a long list of values, in this case it's not such a long list, but imagine you have a long list of values. It's an easy way to make, for example, certain values, high or low, be more visible to you. It's a way to be able to compare values, and we'll get into that as well. So it's a way to take a whole bunch of numbers and maybe make them make a little bit more sense and make them more understandable. And we talked about graphs as a way to do that, and graphs are good, but these things actually happen right there inside the cell. So we're going to add a little conditional formatting to this. Two things we're going to do. We're going to add, let's see which one we do first. We're going to do which one are we doing first? Hold on. Yeah, we're doing the data bars first. Okay, so we're doing the data bars first. So this is what data bars are, these things right here. We're about to make them. And what they'll do is they'll put a bar in your cell based on the value. And the larger the value, the longer the bar. So it's an easy way to figure out which values are high and which values are low. And again, we just have 5 here, so that's not all that useful. But if you had 10 or 50 or 100, it's a lot easier to kind of compare, okay, where's the highs, where's the lows, when you've got these data bars. So that's one thing we'll do. The other thing we'll do is we will highlight the really expensive, in this case, the expensive cost per bottles, and in this case, the really lowest cost per pill. So we're going to highlight the highs and lows as well. And we'll do all that during conditional formatting. So here we are back to our sheet. Let's go do it. Let's do the first one. So we're gonna add to column H these H7 through H11. I'm gonna select those cells, and I'm gonna add conditional formatting which will put a value in here, put a bar in here, I should say, based on the value. So the numbers that are high will get a full bar, and you can see that 7.06 is the highest, so they're going to get a bar that goes all the way across. And the numbers that are lower will get bars that go proportionally across based on their comparison to the highest value. So you can see it's kind of like a pie chart built in, or a percentage chart, to understand where the big numbers and where the low numbers. So let's do that with conditional formatting. So we'll come up here to conditional formatting. And this one is actually fairly straightforward to do. You just come right down. Let's zoom in on it so you can see a little better. Conditional formatting, we got data bars. In this case, they're asking us for the solid fill. So I'm going to put my mouse over that. And you can see it actually gives you, when you put your mouse over it, the solid fill. There's also these gradient fills here, which give you a little bit easier to see the numbers. But I'll go for the one they chose in the book, which is the data bars, and we chose the blue data bar, I think. I'm gonna just undo that. So I did this sort of the old, I don't know if I call it the old-fashioned way, the long way, the normal way. I'll just mention that the book did this by a different way. What they did was, let me undo that real quick. They used the quick analysis tool, and they came right here to data bars, and data bars automatically puts in that blue one too. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's certainly faster. Again, as I mentioned, I use the quick analysis as much maybe as I should, just because there was no such thing when I learned Excel. So I'm not used to having it there to help me. It's like, hey, that's a great thing. So that's a fast way to do it. I went and did it the longer way, which is to use the conditional formatting menu, and that's the most robust way because you can get more choices there. But data bars from the quick analysis tool, also nice. All right, so now we've got these bars in here. We'll worry about the formatting of the numbers in a bit, but we've got the bars in here that show us this is a low daily cost, and these two are the highest daily costs. This one are very close as well. So you get a very quick graphical representation of the relative values of these numbers. All right, let's go on. Let's go and format this cost per bottle. So we want to know which bottles are super expensive. So I'm going to highlight these cells, F7 through F11. And again, I suppose it's obvious, but I'll say it anyway. If you want to format some cells, you got to select the cells first. So I selected F7 through F11. And now I will go up here to my conditional formatting. And I'll go again to highlight cells rules. Zoom in so you can see that a little bit better. Highlight cells rules, and I'll choose greater than. So I want to know my question really is, highlight to me all the bottles that cost more than 20 bucks. Where am I going to be spending big money for these pills? So greater than, and it says format cells that are greater than. You can type in whatever value you want. In this case, we're just going to type in 20. And it will, by default, give us this light red fill with dark red text. We're going to change that to yellow fill with dark yellow text. And I will point out that you can actually go and use a custom format and make it look any way you want. I almost always use one of these defaults because they're pretty good. Yellow fill with dark yellow text, and I'll hit OK. And now you can see, when I click off, you can see a little bit better. Now you can see that the two bottles that are more than $20 will show up here as yellow. And of course, if I were to change this one, if this one ends up going up in price, sorry, it's got to be more than $20. 21 more than $20, that also would turn yellow. So again, the value changes, and the conditional formatting changes, I should say, as the value changes, which is kind of what you want. So this little thing here shows us the pill bottles, cost per bottle, that's more than $20. Now some bottles have different numbers of pills, so obviously you can't judge by that, because if the bottle cost more than $20, but it was 1,000 pills, that might be a fairly low cost per pill, and that's what we're talking about here. So we got different things we're looking at, but we're looking just when you go to the store, which bottles do you need to make sure you got a high balance on your credit card to buy, and you can't buy this unless I got 50 bucks ready to spend. All right, that's that. So let's do one more thing with conditional formatting. It turns out that these cells in here are actually conditionally formatted as well, and they're set to show the highest in a certain color, the medium in a different color, and the lowest in a different color. That's why there's this sort of range band range, and you can see the highest, they happen to be almost highest to lowest as it goes down, but that may not be as useful to us, so we're just going to remove that conditional formatting. So what I'll do is I'll select those cells, G7 to G11, those cells right there, and I'm just going to remove my conditional formatting. So I'll come up here, oops, let me zoom out so I can see a little bit better, conditional formatting, and I'll come to manage rules, and I'm going to show the rules for the current selection. I'm going to choose delete rule. Delete rule. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. That's sort of the long way. Just looking at the way they did it in the book. They did it a slightly different way. They went to conditional formatting and they did clear rules. That's probably a faster way. They did conditional formatting and clear rules from selected cells. So that'll get rid of those rules right there. Now you can see those cells go away. So that's a quick way to get rid of, sometimes you get a sheet with conditional formatting and you think, yeah, I don't want that. Or maybe you made some and you realize you don't need it. So I did conditional formatting, clear rules, and clear rules from selected cells. Obviously be careful there because you only want to clear the rules from the selected cells. I don't want to clear all the other rules from the entire sheet. I want to keep those rules. Just going to get rid of those old rules we didn't need. So that's the way we did it. That's a slightly faster way than the way I was doing it, which was to delete them. That just clears them immediately. Let's save that, and I will hold for a moment or two for questions. I'm going to hold for a moment for questions on that. All right, so no questions, so let's go on to the next thing, which is one more piece of conditional formatting. Let's go and look at it and then do it. So it looks like this. So we do want to show the least expensive cost per pill. So these, we have calculated the cost per pill. So we're going to use the top-bottom rules to give us the lowest cost per pill. We'll take a look at how those top-bottom rules work in just a second. Let's go do that. And then we'll do some number formatting. We're done. So what we had before, we had this cost per pill, which was conditional formatted. That's not what we need, but we do want to show the lowest value. And again, when there's just 5, it's not that hard to figure out, but if you got a lot of numbers, it's really nice when Excel can just pop out at you the lowest value. So we'll make that happen. We'll select the numbers in column G, G7 through G11. I did that with click and shift click. And now we will do one more conditional formatting. I'll come up here to conditional formatting one time and zoom in as I do it. Conditional formatting. And we'll do the top bottom rules. And one of the things that's a little bit misleading about these rules is they say top 10 items and bottom 10 items. But that actually doesn't mean 10, because we really just want to show the bottom 1 item. Well, that number 10 is changeable, so I'm going to come and choose bottom 10 items, and it gets this little box that says format the cells that rank in the bottom 10. Well, right now there's only 5, so bottom 10 items wouldn't make much sense, but you can change that 10. You can look and see which ones are the bottom 3 or 4 or 5, or in this case, we just want the bottom 1. The bottom 1 item, the lowest item. And we'll change that formatting to be the green fill with dark green text. So we'll make that lowest one come up as green. So even though the highlight cells rules are showing you 10, you can change that 10 to any number you want when you're actually building it's quote unquote bottom 10 items, but this is only the bottom 1 item. So I'll hit OK, and now let me click off so you can see a little bit better, and now it shows us the lowest priced cost per pill. So while the bottle costs a lot, 50 bucks, and it's the most expensive bottle, it also has the most pills, so it ends up being the lowest cost per pill. And that's maybe not surprising. If you buy in bulk, things are often cheaper. That's why Costco exists. So there's our conditional formatting to show us, again, the lowest cost per pill. And I know I said it a couple times, but I'll say it just one more time. we're dealing with a sheet that only has 5 rows of vitamins, so it's not that hard to just look at the numbers and see it. But when you have multiple rows, when you have 10 or 20 or 50 rows, this conditional formatting can really help you get an understanding of what's going on with the information, because Excel is great at getting a bunch of numbers together, but you're not using Excel to its best unless you have Excel also help you understand what those numbers are telling you. And one of the things you can do is apply formatting like data bars or highest and lowest values, or values that are higher than a certain amount, to tell you when you are reaching values that are important to you, either lowest or highest, or sort of the range of values that are in there. All right, let's move on, because there's not too much more in this. We just have a little bit of formatting to do. Let me show you what we're going to do. I'm reading the instructions, but I'll let you see them as well. So we're going to change our formatting. So we've got some numbers in here, you'll see in a minute, that use 4 digits with a counting number format, which doesn't make a lot of sense. So we're going to change those to 2 digits. And we're going to do that by doing find and replace. So of course you could just go and do it manually, but find and replace is more powerful. Let's look at where we are. So we have, for example, here in B4, we've got this $27.63.72, which doesn't make a lot of sense. We got the cost per pills here as having 4 digits worth of values. And for dollar, it obviously doesn't make any sense to have fractional cents in here. So we're going to make all of those things have just 2 decimal places. And we're going to do that rather than going to each individual one. We're going to do it globally. We're going to let Excel do that with a find and replace. So you don't have to, but I often go back to cell A1, which I can work down the sheet. So I'll go back to cell A1. And I'll go to my, in my home tab, in my editing group, there's the find and select button way over here. And I'll come down and I'll choose replace. Control H, by the way, is a shortcut for that. I do a lot of that in Word and Excel. It's the same shortcut. So that's what I would call an optional shortcut for you if you end up using it a lot. It's great to have it, and it tends to be the same, not just in that software, in lots of different software. So find and replace, here's our find and replace dialog box, Control H, or using the button on the ribbon. And what we're going to do here is make this give us more choices by clicking on options. That gives us more choices. So now, rather than just finding, and you're probably familiar with the idea of finding a value and replacing with another value, which is fine. And it's certainly something common to do, but you can also find a format and replace with a different format, not even caring what the value is. So that's kind of different maybe than what you've done before. So right here where it says find what, it says no format set. I'm going to click on the format button over here, and that asks me, okay, what are you looking for? So I'm finding a format, so I'm going to choose accounting. I'm going to go to the number tab, I should say the accounting tab, and I'm going to look for 4 decimal places. Remember, we're looking for things that are set up for a counting number as 4 decimal places, and that's what I'm going to find. So that's what I found. I found this 4 decimal places number, and I'm going to change it in this replace to format again, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to do accounting, but I'm going to make sure this says 2, and that is its default, so it should be set to 2, but I'll make sure it says 2, and I'll hit OK. So you can't see it here. You can preview it, but you can't see it here. But it's going to actually do that for us. I'm going to hit replace all because I'm feeling lucky, and we should find that all of those places, like 27.6372 and some of these others over here that had 4 decimal places, should be replaced by 2 decimal places. Let's try it. So again, this is a find and replace a little bit different. We're not finding a value. We're finding one kind of formatting and replacing with a different kind of formatting. Let's see if it works. I'll do replace all. And I got 9 replacements. I'm going to hit OK. And now I'm going to go back and look at this for all these places where I had values, counting number format. It changed those into 2 decimal places. So that was nice. That made our life a lot easier And again, in a small sheet, you could have done it manually. In a large sheet, it's really nice to be able to just quickly, using find and replace, solve all those problems. Now all the dollars look like dollars and cents. I'm going to save that as is. And that is, I believe, the end of Skill Review 2.1. So I'm going to hold.